Hello, English 3. It's been a while since I've made a recording for all of you, but today I just really quickly wanted to go over our final project. We're going to have work days on Tuesday and Wednesday this week, and we'll also won't have any additional work to do on Thursday other than the vocab quiz. So I would like you to use all of that time to work on your final project and to focus on that and get it done. It's only 3 paragraphs. So I don't think it should be too time consuming, but I just wanted you to go over it with you so that you'll understand everything that you need to get done before October 15th at 11:59 p.m. So, first of all, this is the post in Google Classroom. It is worth 80 points total. And there's 2 links here. There is the actual assignment sheet and then an example paragraph I made for you to look at. So in that assignment sheet, it has those essential questions we've kind of been going over in class, and we're really focusing on number 2 for this project. So what does American literature reveal to us about both our past and our present? And so essentially what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing 2 pieces of literature. The first piece is going to be a piece of modern American literature. And so I'm defining that as something that is written by an American that was published in the last 100 years. So 1920 to 2020. This is super open-ended. If you remember, we talked about literature at the very beginning of this unit and kind of defined it as a lot of really different things. Like it could be a movie, it could be a song, it can be a book, a poem. Even if you have a podcast that you like and would want to compare that to something we read, I think that would be a really great way to utilize what you're passionate about for this project. And I really want to reiterate that there's not some secret formula here of what I want you to pick for your piece of modern American literature. I want you to pick something that you find interesting and that you like, because that will make this a lot more enjoyable for you in the long run. Then the second thing you're going to do is pick one of the pieces of literature that we read in class together, and there's a reading list of everything that we covered together at the bottom of this assignment sheet. And so you're going to pick one of those, and what you're going to be doing is comparing and contrasting them. So you're going to write 3 claims total, so 3 paragraphs, 1 per each claim. And we practiced writing claims and supporting them with evidence throughout this unit. So a paragraph for each of them, and then you're going to, in each paragraph, include textual evidence from both pieces of literature. So if you need to use more than one piece from each, that's totally fine, but you need to have at least one piece of textual evidence from the heritage piece and one piece of textual evidence from the modern piece. And then I'll show you in a second with the example, but I do just need you to tell me which 2 you chose to compare, just in like a sentence at the very beginning of your project, just so I know what you chose and what you're working with. And then once again, 11:59 on Thursday, October 15th is when this is due. And we'll be discussing everything together in class on Friday, which is why it's due on Thursday night. Just some notes. You can use your literacy mindset book for this if you want to, as long as it's American and written in the last 100 years. If you like poetry and want to find a modern piece to compare, the Poetry Foundation is a really great website to do that with. If you're in class, I will have some anthologies that you can look at. I know that's not super helpful if you're at home, but if you're stuck, you can always shoot me an email and I'd be happy to give you some suggestions of where you could go. If you do not have a piece of modern literature already in mind, my suggestion would be go back to the readings and identify which topics you found most interesting. So for example, if you found religion really interesting, maybe find a modern piece of literature that talks about religion, maybe a poem or even a sermon, and then you could compare and contrast those with one of the pieces that we read about religion, or with either of these other topics I've listed. That works as well. Here is the rubric. Sorry, it got a little bit separated here. So the first part here is that we have textual evidence. So like I said, you need to have at least 2 pieces per paragraph, 1 from each piece of literature. This needs to be correctly quoted and incorporated, and it needs to be relevant to the claims that you're making, so not just something that's random. Your claims need to be overarching. And what I mean by that is that they should be things that aren't just like facts about the text, but more like themes and ideas. So a good example would be if you're comparing 2 stories, you wouldn't want to just say both stories have men in them, but maybe you would say in both stories, each man deals with issues of courage or something along those lines. So kind of those more big picture ideas, not just simple facts about the text. And I'll give you an example in a second with my example paragraph I wrote for you. And you really want to focus on making claims that are looking into kind of that past to that present line that we're talking about with that essential question. And then for your content, you're contrasting your two pieces of literature. You're using the skills of analysis that you learned in class. And then once again, representing that line of thinking from the past to the present. So how have things changed? How have things remained constant? And lastly, for format, you're using a piece of literature from class that we read together and a piece of modern American literature. This is organized into 3 paragraphs, and there's little to no grammatical mistakes. I'm pretty lenient if you make a few grammatical mistakes because I know that none of us are perfect. But if you're making enough that it's hard for me to understand what you're saying, this will go down a little bit closer to this end. But the main thing in this one is that you need to make sure that both pieces of literature are what I asked for. So, for example, if you used a piece of British literature rather than American to compare, you wouldn't get any points for this section because it wouldn't be American piece of literature that's modern. And then last thing on this assignment sheet is there is our reading list from class. So these are the heritage pieces you can choose from, whichever one you want to go for. And remember, we have a lot of different things here, such as speeches, creation stories, narratives, short stories, sermons, songs, poems, historical documents. So it's pretty open-ended for whatever you want to focus on. And then also remember in Google Classroom, I have this example. As a note, you do not need to color code yours. I color coded mine so that you can see what each piece is and what it's doing. And here, this first sentence is just what I meant by tell me what the 2 pieces you are that you're comparing. Just in one sentence, let me know what they are just so that I know. And then we have a claim. And for mine, I said intertwine ideas of religion and romance. So that's what I mean kind of by overarching. I'm looking more at themes and big ideas rather than like simple factual things. And then I have a piece of textual evidence from Bradstreet's poem, a piece of textual evidence from Presley's song, and then notice how I have an explanation after each piece of textual evidence. Depending on your writing style, you might do both pieces of textual evidence right after the claim and then explain them in a couple of sentences. This is just personally how I like to write, but it doesn't have to look exactly like mine, but generally you'll want to follow this model of claim, evidence, and explanation. And you'll also notice at this very end, I use this phrase shifted throughout time. And so that's a good little indicator that I'm looking at that line from the past to the present. And so that's what you want to do as well. All right. And as a reminder, I'll also have a thread open, which is where this should be posted when you are listening to it, that you can ask me any questions or you can send me your assignment if you want me to look over it for you. Since I know you won't be able to do that since you'll be at home rather than in class. So reach out to me if you have any questions or need any help or advice, even if it's something as simple as, hey, I don't really remember how to use a semicolon. Is this the correct way to use one? Even if it's a question like that, just reach out to me. I'd be happy to help. All right. So good luck on your final projects. Remember, they're due at Thursday on midnight. If you need any help, just ask. Have a good rest of your day.